you are a producer or a musician and you're trying to create your very first sample-based VST, this is the tutorial for you. I've been there, I've been through the coding, I've been through all of this stuff. This is a no-code solution where I think you should start first. So by the end of this tutorial, you'll be able to create your very first VST and you can thank me later. Let's go. So by the end of this tutorial, you'll be able to create a VST like this. This is called House. I basically went around the house and sampled multiple rooms, kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, different things, and got all these different samples. And I'm basically going to show you the process I did. I'm going to show you the graphical layout. Again, this is a 1000 by 335 dimension. All this is one background image minus the overlays for the buttons, these knob controls, and this is a button here. So when you press a pad, you'll get a highlight. So all of that's done in Maize, but everything else that you see graphically was one PNG file. So we get our samples, we'll do our background, then we'll add our controls, and then we'll export. And the cool thing is, if you go to shop.banksmusic.com, you'll actually download this for free. All right, here's my agenda. First things first, if you plan on doing any project, software project, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Let me say that again. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Look at your favorite VSTs. Look at the design. Think about the performance. What do you like about them? How the interface, what things will you keep? What things will you change? Think about all those things as you're creating your own, because you have to put yourself in the user's perspective. You want to focus on the user experience when you're creating yours. And you're going to run into issues with, you're going to have to tweak layouts. You're going to have to tweak the graphics or your performance. So all those things you want to think about when you're using other plugins. Start looking at it from a user perspective, not just I load it up and start producing music. Again, we're creating a VST instrument, not a plugin. We're going to go over our sampling methods. I'm going to show you an app that I use, the tools that I use. I'm going to show you how I edit my samples. I'm going to show you some free tools to edit your graphics. And what puts it all together is Maize Sampler. It's a free piece of software. It runs on Windows and Mac. But if you want to brand your VST, then you can pay $66 one time, and you can be able to brand your VST. That way you can sell it and promote it, and it's yours. And lastly, we're going to put it all together with a VST build. So what is a VST? It's Virtual Studio Technology. Now we're building a VST instrument, so we're going to take Midi, manipulate it, and then create audio out. We're not creating an effects plugin where we take audio in and then we manipulate it and then send audio back out. This is not what we're doing. It's a sample-based VST. I just want to get that across. The key thing I want you to think about is when you're designing software, think about compatibility. Luckily for us, Maize Sampler supports Windows and Mac. So we'll do VST2, VST3, and audio unit. And the last thing is testing. So I had a good friend that helped me test my plugins. So whether I have a PC or a Mac, I can test both platforms. I use a PC and also have a Mac Mini M2. All right, going into the software, I stumbled on Koala Sampler. I didn't realize it's been around as long as it has been, but Koala Sampler is $5. It runs on your iOS device or it runs on an Android device. I'm running on my Google Pixel phone. You basically can hit any of these pads, you can record your sample, export it to a WAV file. You can do one pad at a time, or you can export the whole bank. Now there's actually 4 banks of 16 pads, so that's a total of 64 samples you can do in one sitting. I'll show you how I'll label everything and get a good recording later in this video. The other application I use is MPC Beats. Typically I use this for if I'm doing auto sampling. Say if I have a piano or synth or something I want to sample and create multiple versions of it, and rather than clicking on one key and getting different velocities at a time, this tool will actually auto sample. But for this demonstration, we're not going to use it as an auto sampler. I'm just basically using these pads here as a way to organize my samples. So once I get my samples, save everything, edit it, I like to bring it into MPC Beats, and I can actually drag and drop all of my samples in here and move them around, get them organized. So when it's time to do my graphics, I already have my pad layout of where everything is going to go. Saves me a lot of time. So I edit my samples in my DAW. I was kicking around like trying to use different tools, Audacity and different things, but I finally got back to my DAW. So why not just bring everything as a track? So I basically, after I have all my samples, I just drop them all into my DAW. I'm using Studio One. And basically, as you see here, there's a track for every sound. And then what I do, I right click on it, I'll auto fade everything to clean them up. I'll listen to each one of them, I'll mute them all, and then solo one at a time and get it like I want. The cool thing I do is I put it on loop mode, so it just loops through that sample and I can hear it over and over and over. And the other thing I do initially, I'll highlight them all, I'll right click, and I have a effects chain that I put on my clips. So I do an EQ and I also have a limiter just to get some things cleaned up. And that way I have a sample that I think is going to be a kick. I can, manipulate my EQ and get that bottom in, cut out the highs. Where if I had something that's a high pitch that I can use as a hi-hat or something like that, then I can manipulate my EQ settings for each one. Once I've done that, the cool thing about Studio One is I can just actually grab all of these WAV files and or one at a time, and drag them over here to a folder, and they're already done. There's no mix down, there's no rendering, balancing, all that stuff. So I really like that feature in Studio One. Next, we're going to talk about the GUI, the graphical user interface. There's two styles. There's a photorealistic version and a flat, or we call it vector-based. Photorealistic is more like, here's one I did called Plush. You can go to my website and download it as well. But you can see it looks more like hardware, it looks like a keyboard. You think about some of your EQs and things like that. They look more like hardware gear. That's real hardware. So that's photorealistic designs. Most of the time that's going to be PNG file with textures. I use Blender 3D to kind of create my knobs, and so it's a little bit more realistic. I also like flat designs too because they're very clean, and as you get into effects plugins later, you may want to scale them up. I know sometimes the buttons might be too small, so you can be able to scale the things up, and it's just a better way of doing things when you want to manipulate the layout. Well, so when we look at picture type images like this, we call it raster. And if you're going to scale, you want to make sure your images are the largest they can be. You can always scale down, but scaling up, you're going to get pixelation. From my inspiration, again, for this project, house where we're building, I got inspired by Karani sounds. You might have heard of a VST called Ting. It was like all these different instruments. So you'll see how I was able to, model that, use that as inspiration when I created house. And some websites you can use. Dribble's a cool website. You can go there and see different designs, different layouts. These are some of the designers behind some of your favorite VSTs, and you'll be able to see that. And then the other thing you can do is AI generated images. I don't use it much for my interfaces, but there was one time that I couldn't find the vector graphic for this spoon and cup. So I actually went to Bing Copilot and I prompted it, and I actually created the image myself, and then I converted it to a vector. I'll show you how I was able to use canva.com to do my mockups. Again, I basically brought Ting in and I did an overlay, and I kind of just use this as a way to learn how to create designs. The more you practice, the better you're going to be. So I'm using Photopia. This is a web-based version of Photoshop, and it's free. And again, everything is all about organization. I have all my folders for all the different icons, the text overlays. You're going to have to be organized if you want to get into VST design. Sprite is an animation frame of a button. So think about Mario Brothers. When that character is jumping, each frame of that animation is basically, we call it a frame. It's a sprite image. So that image has all the combinations. So when a knob rotates from say 0 to 100 or whatever, each frame is in that PNG file. So I'll show you all of that stuff as well. And Blender 3D is optional. Again, we're only doing a flat base vector design, so we don't need to go that far in Blender. Try to keep it simple. All right, so now that we talked about our samples, we talked about our graphics. To put it all together, we're going to use Maize Sampler. You go to maizesoft.com and you can go download that now. I started out my first VST, I tried Contact, and it had a lot of scripting and stuff, and it took a little bit to learn how to put the knobs and stuff on the screen. But Maize is all drag and drop. So you'll be able to drag and drop your WAV files, whether you You spread them out across all the keys, or we have different groups. We're going to do a group for each key, meaning that each drum sample will have its own group, individually controlled, and that's what I like about doing separate groups. The key thing is we're going to, once we load a project up, you'll save the project name. Your instrument name is going to be your preset. That's what's going to actually show up as your instrument. And then we'll export a one-time export, either the VST 2, 3 audio unit, and that's what's going to be important in your DAW to be able to load up your samples. So, are you ready? All right, let's go. Okay, let's get our samples. First thing we're going to do is go to koalasampler.com. If you have an Android device, you go to Google Play, or you can click on your App Store and for your iOS device. Go ahead and download the app. Again, it's $5 for a paid license for this app, and it's well worth it. You can do a lot of things: sequence, create beats, there's effects, the whole gamut. Once you download that, I also want you to go to akaipro.com/mpc-beats, and you're going to download this app here. And it's actually free. It's actually a DAW, but what we're going to do is use it for our organization. So once we have our samples, we'll drag and drop into this application, and that way you can organize your pads and get them like you want. Once they're organized, then you can use that to help lay out your VST. It saves you a lot of time. Another thing I wanted to highlight when it comes to sampling is the audio quality. Again, the Koala Sampler app does allow you to record directly from your phone. So it uses the internal microphone. Thing is, you have to be able to control that volume. So make sure your phone has a capability of adjusting your volume on your phone. So you'll see these LEDs here on your screen. You don't want those dancing around when there's no sound going on. If not, that means your mic is too sensitive. And what's going to happen is, as soon as you normalize your recording, you're going to get a lot of hissing in the background. So what I did to combat that was turn the volume down. But if you want a better recording, I would highly recommend going with an external microphone. I use the VidMic ME, the Video Mic ME by Rode, but I actually use the Video Mic MEC. It's a little more expensive, but it basically, like this, as you can see here, it just plugs right in the bottom of my phone. Only problem is, if you have a case on your phone, then I would recommend getting either taking your case off, or you can just buy, one of these USB extension cables. So go to Amazon. I think mine was $9. Plug that extension cable there, like that, and then plug that at the bottom of my phone. It also has like a little foot and stuff on it. So if you do plug it directly in your phone, you just have to take the case off, and that just gives you a little bit extra support. If you do mount it directly to your phone. But this thing really gave me a lot better quality. I didn't have to worry about the hissing noise. It just cleared a lot of that out. So now we're getting ready to go to grab our samples. As you can see, I'm just holding the button down and getting different sounds. Recording the lock, different door, knocking. The scratch sound and the zipper. To play the video clip to show you how to export your samples. So I'll put this part here. So I'm naming the sample. It's going to give me a zip file. Then I'm going to go to my browse my files on my phone, go to my downloads where I saved it. Downloads. Downloads. Okay, go to my downloads folder, and there's my Koala samples 2.zip file. And as you can see, that's the contents of that file. What I like to do is I'll copy that to my Google Drive, and then that way I can share it with my computer. Or if you want an AirDrop or what other method you want to do, it just saves time for me to trying to use USB to my phone and trying to search and trying to find the files. So that's basically what I do. You see I uploaded it to Google Drive. We'll do a refresh. And once I finish uploading it, I should be able to refresh, and there you go. All right, so now it's in Google Drive. Now I'm ready to bring everything into my computer. So now let's go into my DAW. All right, so let's pull up Studio One. You can pull up Audacity, whatever your favorite DAW is. I've already done this, but I'm going to show you from scratch just so. Suppose we're going to call it House. I recorded everything at 48K in my in-house 48K 24-bit, so to get the highest quality samples. Okay, let's name it 5 just so I don't get confused. All right, so I got a brand new project. So now we're in our samples folder. There's some Koala samples too. So as you can see, each pad gets a prefix. So let me rephrase that. Each sound bank gets a prefix. So we had 4 banks. Remember I told you there was 4 banks of 16, so you get 64 samples. So when I was testing doing the kitchen, that's bank A, and bank B is the bank we want for the bedroom. So I'm going to drag and drop everything here. And those are all the samples. So now that I have all my samples, all I have to do is just drag and voila. Now all my samples are there, everything's labeled. Now being that everything is selected, as I mentioned before, I can do my auto crossfades now. So everything gets automatically crossfaded to reduce any pops or clicks. I also want to add my effects. So I already have an effects chain set up for my samples, and it's basically this. So I have an EQ already set up. I'd like to roll that off to like 12,000. So I have an EQ, and I also have a limiter. That way I don't peak or clip at -3. And again, if you have drums and stuff you like compression, you can add more to your effects chain. But all that was done in a few clicks. So all of these got the same treatment. If I go to my effects rack, I don't have all these different effects on each. It's directly on the clip itself. Okay. Other thing I like to do, I have a folder under my Studio One project called House. And I've already created a new folder. So if I right click and say new folder, I could create a new folder there. But I already have one bedroom. There's no files in it. So once I'm finished editing each one, I'll drag and drop it here, and that'll be my final samples that I'll use to render my project. All right, so let's get editing. I'm going to solo the first one. I'm going to hit P / to turn on looping. So now let's listen to the first sound. So I think I want to just click. So you have to decide whether you just want one click, and if you want to hear what it sounds like back to back. Another thing you can do too is like make everything mono. So here it's in stereo. So if I click that, it's now mono. So do I want it to sound like that, or actually do I want the da-da? I think for this example, I like that. And I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more. And I don't need as much space, so I like to change this to 64. And I can get smaller graduations. I'm trying to get rid of some of that sound in the beginning. Let's keep it like that. And if it was really low, I could do normalize, but it's already been normalized. So that's a little, let's try this next one. That sounds like a blind. I like that. It's texture. So just play around with your fades. There's an extra little pop and then you take out. It's clean. Oh, this is the pillow, so I hit a pillow. Let me see what this other pillow sounds like. I'm just gonna make everything mono. Alright, so I'll bring up my effects on my EQ. Alright, you hear that ripple, so I need to shorten the wave. Oops, wrong one. So we're on this one. It's got like a little ripple in it, so I need to shorten that. Still a bit long for a bass drum. Shorten it some more. Okay, it's got a little slab to it. That's got a nice bass drum sound. I think I stacked two pillows together. So now I just need to shorten that. It's almost like a flam. Okay, I'll keep that for now. Door. It's clean. Might get like a little record scratch feel. Okay, that's hitting on the bed, so I know that's gonna need some bottom. A lot of times I feel like I can get a lot of high-end sounds, but I always want to make sure I got enough kicks. Ooh, there's some bottom. Okay, I can work with that. So keep in mind, think about your sounds. Just mute everything. Solo this guy. This is the zipper. So I want that to have more highs. Less bottom. Maybe let's do. And we're going to drag everything over. Okay, so now we grabbed all the samples, everything's edited. Save this project. And we're moving on. Okay, we just finished our samples. We've exported our samples. I'm going to create a new folder called Working. I got to navigate to my Documents, Studio One, House, Bedroom. Just so I don't screw them up, I'm going to copy, go back to the folder I just created, Working. Okay, so all the samples we just created are now in our Samples Bedroom 3 working folder. Now we're going to queue up MPC Beats. MPC Beats. I'm going to do an empty project just so you guys can see what it's like. Okay, now before I get too far, the thing is with MPC Beats, if you want to save your samples and save your project, make sure when you drag everything here, it's not going to save the files to the library until you hit the save button, even when you're doing auto sampling. So don't take it from me. I've been in many times where I sampled something and didn't save everything and then open the project back up and there's nothing there. So you got to commit. All right, so we're going to open up that folder, the working folder. I'm going to grab everything. Just going to drag it over here to my samples folder. Okay. So now everything is in MPC Beats. And what I can start doing is auditioning my sounds. Let's see. I know my knocks and stuff are going to be like snares. So I'll put them in there. Carpet, the bed. I'll wait on that stuff. And V10. So that should be all of them. That's almost like a double bass drum. Ooh, I like the bottom in that. Ooh, that was loud. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's see. I like that better than that. Put that over there. Okay. Okay. Okay, so I think I have a mix of sounds that I like. What I want to do is open my handy snipping tool, and I'm going to grab here. And what this will do, now I can see what sounds I have. Okay. Now when you get ready to drag and drop your samples, it's easy to memorize where everything is. So what I can do now, I'm going to show you something I didn't show you before. I'm going to go over to my drive. When I first started doing VSTs, I tried to figure out the Midi and all the settings and all that stuff. So I was like playing around with samples and settings and presets and the whole gamut. But what I want to show you is I had this is kind of my standard drum kit template. So if you have a 16 pad setup, we'll start at C1, which is note 36. So our particular instrument is going to go from 36 all the way up to 47. So you can take a screenshot of this, blow it up so you can see it. So take a screenshot of that, and you can use this as a way of labeling your stuff, or comment below the video, and I can make this stuff downloadable. I'm just going to copy this, create me a new sheet, paste. And then in my file here, V13 bed, and then I have VO6 pillow 1. All right, so now that we have all our samples labeled, I can print that, or I can just take another screenshot. This is much easier to read than trying to look at that screenshot from MPC Beats. All right, so it's the same thing, but it's just easier to read. And these are the actual file names. All right, so save my project. Let's see, bedroom 3 final. All right, close that. To make it simpler, I'll just say update. And that way I can copy the ones I'm only going to use. Ever split screens, that helps. All right, so split screens. So I need to be able to chain, copy those, paste them. All right, so these are the sounds I'm going to bring into Maize Sampler. If you really want to save time, you can actually label the MIDI notes. So I'll say 44. The chain is 45. And 39. Okay. So now everything is labeled, everything matches, so I don't need this anymore. And we got that. So now we're going to move along to loading everything up into Maize Sampler. Okay, we finished our samples. Now we're getting ready to load up Maize Sampler. So I'm click on Maize Sampler. So you can go to maizesoft.com, download Maize Sampler, go to products, Maize Sampler. And here you can download the Windows version or the Mac version. You got your PDF. And if you want to buy it and get that license, there it is. Click that link. And there's a form and everything. But I'm giving you everything you need to get started. All right, so go ahead and download Maize, get it installed. We're going to load it up. So this is what it looks like for the first time. You're going to see your piano keys at the bottom. There's no samples. This is going to be populated with your samples. You're starting with one default group. We're going to make a group for each pad. Reason being, each group has individual effects. Well, you can actually change the volume and trigger them by velocities and all the good stuff, pan. So that's why I want them separate versus one group with all the drum samples on one keyboard. Because then if you change the volume of the whole instrument, you change it for everybody, not just that individual key. So that's very important. So we're going to start out with a blank canvas. Call this bedroom. Test, because I already started this before. Put your company name in. You can leave all this stuff default for now. But here's where we're going to start doing our groups. So first group is going to be just going to use our spreadsheet that we had before. We're going to start with the top pad, which is 44. So pad 44, which is G#1. You can do it how you like, but then if I do edit, add a group, set this as it right next to it. So then I'll do, go over here. And the things you're not using, you can minimize them so you don't get confused. So pad 45, A1. I like to put the note name as well as the Midi. That way, when you're dragging it here, you'll know that, okay, this is C1, this is C#1, whatever. But this is also key 36. So it's all about being organized. All right, I'm going to do one more. So this will be pad 46. There's A#1. All right, so now we got the pads in place. So you got the bedroom test, Banks Music. If I go to save, first time it's going to actually pick the name of the instrument. So this instrument name is actually what's going to show up as a patch when you're scrolling through your menus. So whatever you name here, it doesn't matter what the files are named here. It's what you named this part. This is just the actual file name for this project. So I could call it whatever I want. It doesn't matter. It's not gonna. This has no bearing on your VST. So if I hit save now, if I close this out and open it back up, that's where I'll start from. All right, so we got our basic groups. Let's look at our GUI part, our GUI. This is the default. So it's 593 by 242. We're gonna make ours 1000 by 335. So now you see how it changed. The image is no longer there. But the problem with this default GUI, let me double check something. Yeah. So here's one of the problems you're gonna run into. It's kind of hard to see, but when you have a default GUI, it's gonna have all the knobs and stuff on there. I don't know if there's a way to Control A or anything. All right, so I'm gonna save this as PNG. Never thought of this before, but all right. So go back to it, and then we'll load just to see if I can see. All right, see what I mean? Now you can kind of get an idea what's there. You want to get rid of all this stuff, because if not, you'll have stuff blinking on your screen. Like, where did it come from? So for the very first time, you got to do this, clear it out. Guys, I'm giving you all the stuff that you don't get in other videos. They just say all you got to do, and that's, if you know me, I like to make sure you get the details that you need. There we go. Clear all the junk off the screen. So that's one thing you're going to have to do. And then you can hit save. All right, so these are the basics. I'm just showing you the basics before we start adding. The other thing, there is a lock feature if you want to copyright protect, but again, that's got if you have a paid version. So once we've edited, loaded our samples in, it doesn't matter where you put this folder, but you have to have it. So if I name my VST HOUZ and it's capital, make sure the case matches, and then put .instruments. This is where you're going to export. When you go to export your instrument, you're going to get a .msc file. So you can see these .msc files. And what happens is when you leave your DAW, it's going to want to know where your content is. I'm going to tell my DAW, see VST projects house.instruments, and then it's going to look for anything in this folder, and it's going to automatically load it every time the VST loads. All right, so we got to save your project, export your instrument, and then the last thing you want to do is generate your VSTs. And that is under generate plugin. So this is the part you're going to generate your plugin. So as you can see, I've already generated one for plush, soul for guitar, and one for house already. This is when I was first testing. If you don't have a license, you cannot customize your plugin. It's going to come up as Maize Sampler player in your DAW. You won't be able to customize that. And so if you have different VSTs you're doing, it's going to get confusing because you're going to have more than one of these unless you change the company name for every project. I hope that makes sense. So in my DAW, I have plush, soul for guitar, house. They're all separate VSTs. If you don't have the paid license, every one you create, you could create, say you're creating your plush, soul, house, and they're all different. You're only going to have one sampler player, and you have to have all of these projects, all your exported instruments in one folder, and then one player can play all the files. It's just that one plugin might be wide, one might be tall, so it's not as professional. So if you're trying to package this and sell it and promote it, then highly recommend you go through this process. So then if I want to create my own, I can go to plus here. I will put my vendor name, like I got Banks Music. And since I have a paid, I could create another one called House with 2 Z's, whatever. I hit OK, and it's got a random name it generates. So now it's in the process of generating the file. It says it could take up to 30 minutes. Normally it takes maybe 10 or 15. It's going to generate 2 zip files. One's going to be for the Mac VSTs, and the other one's going to be for the Windows. And while we're waiting on that, you just hit refresh when you want to check up on it. But basically what it's going to look like is here. It's going to generate these 2 files, 2 zip files. In the Mac folder, here's all your stuff. So if you have an AU, This is your ADU content. VST for Mac. It's gonna look different on the Mac when you open that file. On Windows, you get the old school VST2, which is a DLL, which I just recommend just going to VST3 now. So I'm gonna take that VST3 and I'm gonna load that and copy that to my program files, common files, VST3 folder. And this is where all my VSTs 3s are referenced to. So anytime my DAW loads, it's going to scan this folder. And house should be, all right, there's house, there's plush, soul guitar. So they're all separate VST3 folder files. Whereas if you don't have a paid one, you're going to have this here, Maize Sampler player. And then that has to reference to all your, you only can reference to one instrument folder. So that means program files, that means wherever you keep your instruments, like I have a VST content folder, so my plush is in there. These are all the stuff that you get with plush. Soul for guitar, same thing. If you don't have the licensed version, you're gonna have to have one folder called my VST or whatever, that instruments, and then all these .msc files will have to be in that one folder for it to work for you. All right, I hope that makes sense, but I just wanted you to get a feel for that. All right, so now we're gonna move on to loading our samples. All right, so now we are in our updates folder where we put all our files. This is why it's important while we label everything. So now we got pad 44, which is G sharp. So we have pad 44, which is G sharp 1. So now I can just drag and drop stuff. So I can double click it here and pull up my folder, or I can hit the plus sign here, do the same thing. So I'll just do the plus sign and I'll show you both ways. So I want to add note 44. So let's go back to house samples. All right, so it's asking me what's the low key, what's the high key. We know it's only one key, so I want it to be 44. And it's going to play whether the velocity, the lowest velocity or high. So no matter how hard I hit the pad, it's going to play, but it's going to be touch sensitive. All right, so now it's loaded in. So that's one view. And now I hit the pencil view and show it on the key this way. So now 44, if I go over to my group. So I'm on pad 44. You notice that it didn't change over here. That's the only funky thing about it. So I like to keep it in this view, and I know everything is set. This is a gain if you say your pad it's too loud. And that's a good thing. You can click on these keys. Just notice that when you click near the bottom, that's the hardest part. If you click to the top, it's soft. Okay. And the other thing is under the sample. I'm sorry. You don't have to change this under the group. Under the sample, you do. So because you want to make sure it's not the tempo is adjusted. If I change that reference point to a different point, if I hit that key, it could be slow or fast, time stretch. I don't want a loop. I want a one shot. So I got 44, which matches. Everything lined up working. A one shot is not a loop. So we got no loop, one shot, loop to the end. A no loop is you got to hold the key down as long as the sample is. One shot, if you press it one time, it's going to play the length of the sample. And then, of course, loop is as long as you hold down that key, it's going to keep looping. but we're not looping anything. You get into looping, then you have to do crossfades so they don't click and pop between repeat of the loop. I know I'm giving you a lot, but I want to make sure you can use this tool beyond what I'm showing you today. All right, so now we got our first sample. We'll go to our next. So I'll do plus, and I'm gonna do 45. So I'll just go up one. So I'm on A1, which is on 45, note 45. I'm gonna come over here to my group properties. I don't really have to worry about that, but I'm gonna look at my note, make sure the root's right, 45, 45. Make sure that's on one shot. No crossfade, all that. And you keep going. And then all you do is hit save. And now we're ready to export our instrument. If I export this instrument right now, it would actually be playable, but now we got to get the GUI part working. Okay, now we're moving along to the graphics part. Hurrah. So as I mentioned before, there's photorealistic and flat vector design. Just remember that a vector graphic, you can scale it like a logo. You can make it as small as you want, as big as you want. It will never get pixelated. Whereas a photo, you can only scale down. If you scale it up without AI, it's going to be pixelated. So I mentioned before getting inspiration. So I wanted to show you that real quick. When it comes to VSTs, if you go to dribble.com, so you can see a lot of design. Sometimes people redesign stuff as practice, but you can get a good idea and hear, what it takes to make a nice looking UI. And some are very simple. These are photorealistic. So yeah, you can come in here and play around and get ideas. Look how things are made. I always like to copy and paste the images and paste them into like PowerPoint or Google Slides. Keep a scrapbook, swipe file of stuff that inspire you. That way you always have something to go back to refer to. All right, so our particular VST I was inspired by this one here called Team by Karate Sounds. A bunch of hand instruments. They had different room treatments and stuff based on the devices playing. It's pretty cool. So I modeled that. So what I would do is take my snipping tool like that, go over to canva.com, and I'll paste that in. Now, if I didn't know the dimensions, first I had to get the dimensions, but it's easy to get that. But I'm just moving along to try to make things faster. But basically, there's two ways of doing this. You can look at it and start drawing shapes. So I know that that's a rectangle. Just see if I delete this. Create a new page. Move this up. Copy that and paste it. So what I could do is fade this out like that. Then I can go over here to my elements. I can grab a rounded rectangle, rounded square. So let me just give you a rough idea. I need to make that a little bit more visible so I can see what I'm doing. So maybe that didn't work right. So I'll just grab a regular square. Then I can duplicate or Control D. As you can see, if you move things, it gives you the right spacing, so it's a grid. So they're all 10 apart. Then I can grab all of those, Control D again. And that's basically how you can play around and start getting a layout. I'm not going to go into a full graphical tutorial, but as you can see, real quickly you can start getting an idea on what it's going to look like. If I want to draw some rectangles like this, just move this over, that, change the color to green or something. Create Control D again. Maybe change that to white or gray. If I want to change position, I hit position, backward. Or if I want to add an outline, I can add some lines to it, add some weight. Maybe I did want that on the top, so I can change the position. Or I can go to layers here and move stuff too. And say I want to put that little rotation to it. And that's quickly how you can start. Even there's some like UI components too in Canva. So even though it's red, even though it's watermark, you still use it for a mock-up. So I think Canva's cool to quickly do mock-ups of stuff. Maybe you want a different button, you want a gradient. So there's a lot of cool things you can do with Canva. So moving forward, as you can see here, I use some buttons just to get an idea of how I want it. So once I do that, what I did was, I think I just, so this particular says page 3, right? So I'll go to share, download, and then instead of all pages, I'm going to pick the page, the current page. It's going to give me a PNG file. Oh, then I have register components. There's always a way. Just hit new. I'm just going to do a snippet. Grab it like that. All right. So then I'm going to go over to Photopia, which is this is a web version of Photoshop. I'm going to say new project. And my other one, I think I was 1000 by 1335. Is that what I said? Let's see. Yeah, 1335. So 1000 by 1335. Transparent, create. All right. So then I want to add a new layer. And I should be able to hit Control V and paste. And then all I need to do is scale that down so it fits. Hit check. Okay, so there's my original layout. And over here I got fill and opacity, so if I want to fade that out a little bit. So now, kind of similar to what we were doing in Canva. Right? Then we hit a new layer. Now I can grab some tools. So the above the hand, there's your rectangle, ellipse, and all of that stuff. So if I would grab a rectangle, I can draw one here. Stroke is if you want an outside line around it. Get black. You can change how many pixels you want. I'll just make it 2. I'm just showing you just for demonstration purposes. Actually did that twice. Okay, then I need to change the color of that. So I click back on my arrow here, and then if I double click on this layer, now I can change the color. So I'm gonna pick it like a gray or something. And as you can see, it's got an outline, it's got that stroke around it. Now, if you don't want the stroke around it, what I like to do is undo that. All right. Let's try this again. So, rectangle tool. It automatically created a new layer. Don't worry about this part. No stroke. You can change the color if you want, or the fill if you don't know what you want. Just pick a gray or something. Okay. So now what you do is right click on this and go to blending options. And here you can do all the stuff. So if I want to change the stroke, make sure I click on that. See, now I can play with outline and stuff, the opacity of it. If I mess up, I can just turn it off. I can add some glow, drop shadow. Again, I'm not giving you guys a full graphic design course, but you see how you can do all this cool stuff. All right. Maybe you don't want to keep changing the color, so you can go over to color overlay here, and you can change it here. You can blend it. So now I got a red button. All right. All right, so you can see it can get pretty messy when you got too much stuff going on. So I want to get organized. So I'm gonna go down here to this folder, and I can call it pads. And now I can drag this into that. So now if I turn off this layer, it turns off everything that's in it. Now I can right click, duplicate layer. So now I got another pad. And now I can, once I click my arrow, like my mouse pointer, then I can use the arrow keys and slowly scroll over, or I can hold down shift and jump. All right, so what I do is, sometimes you gotta click back on it. Photopia is a little buggy sometimes. Chrome browser is very hungry when it comes to RAM, so I would save often. So make sure you save as a PSD. It's a Photoshop file, a document. I'm just gonna call it test. That way you can always load it back later. Okay, so we talked about some basic graphic design stuff, organization. So now if I turn off that folder, everything in that folder. So I would create a new folder. We can call it interface background. Okay, and remember with Photopia that the higher you go, that's the highest layer. So now we want to get a background going. So I don't want the pad to be behind a background, it'll be above a background. Okay, so I'll go here, and if I add a new layer, I'm gonna draw a rectangle for the whole thing, just for the fun of it. Okay. And now I want to right click on it, blending options. Now I can play with the colors. So before I showed you how to do a color overlay. So if you want a different color, See how you can play around with that. Or if you don't like that, you can do a gradient. Where's the gradients? Gradient overlay. You can play with the angle. You can click on the gradient, change the color. So if you want to start with one color and with a different, so you want to go from dark to light or black to blue, purple. All right. So now you're getting a nice gradient overlay. You got your buttons. One thing before I forget, on your button, there's a properties up here. Say you wanted a rounded edge radius, hit 5. So I just changed that. So it's gonna make all of them have a rounded look to them. Same thing. Okay. So I'm basically copying all of my buttons over. And then the next thing I got to do to keep organized is if you go to your main arrow, grab this ruler here. If you don't have rulers turned on, make sure you turn on your ruler. View rulers. Make sure that's turned on. And then you can just all right, so yeah, just grab down in here, left click, and pull down. So now I can create guides. And this is basically my spacing on how everything. So the main thing is if you click on each item, you can turn on distances. It's like a grid. Since all the buttons are a grid, at least each button gives you the center and all the different vertices. So it's easy to find the center points of your buttons like that. And this comes in handy because now we're going to add another folder. And we're going to call this pad text. All right, so then I'm going to add some text. So I'm going to add a new folder, a new layer. And then I'm going to go to my text tool. I use Montserrat as the font. If you don't have it, you can install right from your computer your local fonts, or you can pick what's available. Futura is a good font. But as long as it's clean. I'm just going to grab this for now. All right, so the font's loaded. I'm going to go to text, regular. So if I click on the screen, now it's ready to write. Pad 1. Click over here. Now you can arrow key stuff around. That's way too big, right? So over here you can go, let's see, cancel that, keep the regular font. To edit the font, go back over here, double click, and change the size. Maybe this view's too small, so hit Control++. And if I hit my Control key and Shift key, I can scroll left and right with my scroll wheel on my mouse. Again, I'm not trying to give you guys a full-blown graphics course, but this comes in handy. All right, so now I can center my text using that guide. And to easily copy that, Just drag it down to there, to that layer thing, and it creates a new layer. And then I'm on that new, I can double click it, change the name, pad 2, and then all I have to do is just use my arrow key, like that. And then I can start getting my text labels. Then the next thing I want to do, say I want to put some graphics on, so I can create another folder, pad graphics, right? And say I want this first pad to be fist. So I can go on Google, fist, SVG icon. SVG repo is good. I wouldn't want a solid. Let's say I'm knocking on a door or something, so I could hit that arrow, it downloads the file. There's the file. So I can either all right, so under Photopia graphics, I'll basically go to my download and I'll drag that in. So there it is. Of course, it's way too big, right? So go up here. As long as you're linked here on your scaling, you can just type in a %. Let's just do like, since that's so big, let's do like 10% first. Okay. Don't grab that handle in the middle. I'm sorry. Let's try that again. Oops. Oh, you see where I made a mistake with that background almost got away from me? So what you can do is lock things. So where I had that background, where is that at? Background. So if you just click on this, once it's highlighted, go up here to this lock, and now I can't exit. Oh, that's something different. Oh, yeah. Yeah, now I can't accidentally mess up. All right, so let's go back to the fist. Up here. And what you can do is lock all the other ones so you don't mess up. Because this project is going to scale once you have multiple ones. All right, so I got the fist. Let's try this again. I could grab it here as long as things are together, scale together, as long as they're linked. And then there's my fist. Maybe you didn't want that fist to be black. You can right click, blend options, color overlay, and now you can make it white color or gray or whatever. Make sure you change the opacity. Maybe you want to put a stroke around it, give it a little bit. More oomph. You can do soft light so it's not as strong. You can add shadows. So that's how you do your effects. All right, so I gave you a basic overview. We did a background, I showed you how to do the graphics. All right, so now we're going to fast forward, and then I'm going to show you, I'm going to save this. And I can give you this file to practice on if you want it. All right, so now I'm going to open my project. All right, let's turn the layers off just so we could walk through where we came from. All right, there's nothing on. All you see is just my guides. And the dimension, again, is down here at the bottom left corner, 1000 by 335. So if I turn my background on, my background folder, these are all the different layers I have. My first one is like this blue color. This is for the kitchen. When I did bath, I kind of changed the gradient a little bit. Did a rectangle there. So this rectangle here, So I had this rectangle. We go to properties. I added a pattern overlay, and that's how I got that texture. Okay. And then the next thing was my pads. So how did I do the pads? Oops. All right, so I have a stroke around it like I showed you earlier. It's 2 pixels. Those are my settings for that. I had a little bit of drop shadow. Those are my settings for the drop shadow. So again, once I get one pad design, I just copy, paste it all across, and then I can paste the rows down. And then I label them. Once you do that, you can lock them away. You don't need them anymore. I'm going to start the bathroom one, well, bedroom. So I'm going to copy this one here. And I want to make that a little bit more red. Make it love. Let's see here. Hold up. There we go. So I can change this. I'm going to add a little bit. Just going to have a little more pink or red or something in it. Purple. Okay. So now I got that background ready. It's the bedroom, which I haven't done anything yet. And then that's the bathroom. So what I'm going to do is lock the bathroom off. I'm going to lock the office off because I'm not using that. And I'm only going to focus on the bedroom. So I'm going to move that up. These are where my icons are going to go. So these are the things I need to get images for. I need to get a bed, pillow, all these things. Now I did it ahead of time. So under my pictures, I got an SVG folder. So these are the images I already went and found on the internet, so I can verify to make sure I have them all. So these are don't change. So what I did, I created a folder called Pad Labels Bottom, and here I added all the text. So P is for pan. Let me save because it seems like it's using a lot of RAM. You can see how much RAM if you go over on the tab. 4.9 gigs of memory. So that's what I'm saying. Chrome is a hog. Close out some tabs. I know I'm jumping around, but okay. So the text at the bottom will never change from design to design, so that's locked. But that's all the text. So you have to go through and create the text for those. And then I left spaces so I could add the knobs for the pan and the volume for each pad. Okay. I showed you how to do the text across the top. So that's a different layer. So the way I did that was pad text. I got pad labels bottom, and then I got, which will never change. And then the top's going to change depending on which instrument you have loaded. So the kitchen is off right now, and the bathroom is on. So I'm going to turn that off, and I'm going to go down to bedroom. I'm going to lock bathroom so I don't mess that up. All right. So these are the old labels that I have initially. All right, so you can see it's doubled up there, so I need to get rid of some stuff. So these are the note names. That could go away. That could go away. So I'm gonna hit delete. Okay. So everything's intact. What happened was when I have all the different layouts into one project. So what I did was when I finished bath, I took this whole folder and drug it down to here, created a copy. So now I renamed that as, room 2, whatever. So all the stuff that was in there, it got copied over, which I didn't need twice. So I don't need that folder. I'm going to delete it. All right, so now we're working in bedroom. Another thing you can do too is change the color, just so I can visually see where I'm at. All right, so now I'm working on the top text. So the first one is here. Double click it. I got all caps turned on. I'm just going to type bed. Then I'm going to use my arrow keys. Okay, and what I'm looking at, you can't see it, but I'm looking at this file here that we created earlier. And zipper. Okay, so now got all these in place. Save. All right, so all the text is done. Now I got to add the icons. So I'm going to lock this. Save. And now I'm going to go to the icons. I'm going to just drag it over into that folder. Oh, I had to, gotta have the folders turned on. So now, if the editing stuff don't come up, go over here to edit, transform and scale. Now we can play with it. So that's it. Grab the mattress. I'm going to hit shift and my arrow keys, speed things up. Then fine tune it without the shift key. That's a little big. So I'm going to go to edit, scale. Instead of 10%, let's make it 8. And that's an eyeball thing. We can tweak that later. Another thing I want you to know that I don't really have any bold colors over here. Everything's not popping out bold. So what I did do on the pad icons, let's see. Yeah, so, and when I did the kitchen, I had some of these that were really, really black and bold. So I just went up here to the field. The cool thing about a folder is you can apply effect or the adjustment to the folder and it affects everything inside of it. So for bedroom, if I say that was too much, I could change the whole opacity to everything in the folder. So I'm just gonna start with 80 because I don't want it to overshadow the text as much. Okay, save. All right, so now I need to find the pillow. Pillow in. Let's go just a little bit faster. Make sure it's in that folder. And if that's too bold, you can actually just click on the item itself and change its opacity as well. Give it a little bit extra. That way, one thing, because with this black fill, it's going to pop out more. And just make sure everything is getting centered properly. For the sake of time, we're going to go ahead and fast forward. Okay, we now finished up the icons with the graphics. I need to turn my layers back on for everything so we can see. Interface text. Okay, everything's back on, all the text. And now we're ready for exportation. All right, so we're gonna go to File, make sure I save first. Okay, File, Export, SPNG, and I'm gonna call this house bedroom 1. Doesn't matter as long as I can remember. So we are now into the GUI stuff. So we're going into Maize Sampler. So let's open Maize Sampler back up. I'm gonna open up the project that we started, the temporary one, just so you could. Is it bedroom test? Yeah, okay. All right. So this was the placeholder from a previous one. So I'm going to go to assets and then we'll go to, it should be that purple one. There it is. All right, there we go. So this is the graphic I just created. And the only thing missing now is all of the overlays and everything. All the knobs and all that good stuff. So as you can see, we now created the background. We brought it in to Maize. So this is where you will be ground zero. So right now you don't have any controls on the screen. So what do we got to do? We got to add some knobs and things like that. First thing we're going to add is our preset selector. So I'm going to do add, right click, add. I take that back. We're going to add a button. Just a regular button. These are built-in buttons. So that's what the button looks like. I'm gonna use the less than sign for my symbol. You can tweak these however you like, but I just want you to see. And that's how I did that. If you right click, you can change the orientation or the position if you want in the front or back or whatever. All right, so after you have that, you want to make another button. And just remember the sizing. So this is your X and Y, and then this is your like your coordinates, like your width and height. So if I wanted it perfectly square, I could change that. So all I need to remember is these last two. I mean, technically you could copy this, do this, paste it. It's just going to be directly on top of the other button. Then use your arrow keys, click one button, and then just use your arrow key to go over. And then I'm going to make this a greater than sign. And then I need to add the instrument selection in. It's a label. And then you want this to be the instrument list. And then you're just going to move this here. Like that. And then you can play with your, I always just say presets. All right, so now we know how to add the presets. Now we need to make these buttons do something. So we're going to go down to action, and we want to go to load next instrument from list. That's the next, and then we want this one to be loaded previous. All right, so as you click these buttons, it'll, if I have like a bedroom, I have bathroom, I have kitchen. So when I hit these toggle buttons, it'll actually scroll through the next option. Or you can click on this part here and it'll make a drop down menu automatically. Okay. Again, we're still working in the temporary file, not working in the actual my project file. I just want you to see how to do this. The next thing I did, say we want to add the ADSR, the attack, decay, sustain, and release. Say we need to add some controls here. So if we do a knob, these are the built-in knobs. As you can see, they're less than ideal. But this is if you didn't have your own knobs, you could just use these. Look at the coordinate, the first coordinate, they'll all be in alignment. So that's 587. So that means I need to move this over one. and then they're all aligned. So that's how you align everything as far as coordinates. So then I can say this button is going to control the ADSR, and so that's attack, decay, sustain, and release. Now, thing is, we have multiple groups. So the way this is going to work is, say this is A for attack. I'm going to click that. But now I need to select all of the groups because I want to adjust the attack. So I hit confirm. Now it's going to control all the groups. I also need to add a label below that. So I didn't put the graphic in my design in Photopia, but you can just add a label below it. You just don't give it an action. So I could say attack. And just pull that over like that. You want to make your button bigger, you can. But I just wanted to show you how to quickly lay your buttons out. Also on this knob, the knob, you can change the colors. So if you don't want, you can make that black. And now it's a black knob. The outline, if you wanted it white or something different, you can. So that's how you do that. So that's how I got my knobs. So that knob will control that parameter. So you go through and do all of that. Only thing I want to add here is for the pan and volume. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to go with knob. I am going to use the can knobs for these. I think I made mine 20 by 20. So 20, 20. And then I changed this to like a light gray color. And I played around with that like that. Use my arrows. And so that basically changes the pan for this particular group. So that key is, look at my reference, 47. So let's put it on. So I don't have a 47 yet. Let's just put it on 46. All right, so what I would do is say action, and I want to do group pan, and then I got to pick which key, or which pad rather. So it's going to control this pad, A#1. So that means that when I scroll this little knob in runtime mode, it's actually going to control the pan for this one particular carpet sound. So if I add another knob, go over here, 20 by 20. Play with the colors. Then I want to change, right click on it. Click on it, do action. Now I want to change the volume for that particular group or pad. So I want to go to group, gain. And then I want to grab, which is A#1, which is 46. Boom. So I would go through and create these knobs for every pad. And then that way I can control them individually because they're all separated by groups or layers. One thing in this software, you can also adjust when you make it other VSTs. I just want to make sure you know this, but say for this sample, and I just wanted to change the velocity range. Maybe I don't want it to only play when I'm hitting the pad a certain volume. So if I hit the pad, say 0 to 50%, it's only going to play. And if I hit it too hard, it's not going to play. So now I can actually bring in another sound or stack another sound on top of this. I could drop another one in. Or say if it's a piano, you might have different recordings of different velocities. That's where MPC Beats comes in. So when I do my piano patches, I might have 4 recordings for one key to give me a better layer or better sound to make it more realistic. So you would just basically drop that on top of this, change the velocity, and you keep stacking them. So just in case you have different layers, that's how you do that velocity layer. And then also if you have a synth, you can actually, or a piano, you can drag this one sample and it'll play across all the keys. You just have to remember the more you stretch it, this pitch is going to change. We're just doing a one shot, so as you change the key, it's going to change the sound because it's going to stretch it. Now, a synth sound doesn't really matter, but I just want you to know that while I was thinking about it. And then again, if you're going to do looping, you can play around with the start and end. Just make sure you turn a crossfade on, and you can play around with the loop points. So when you hold down a piano pad or synth pad, it'll actually loop without clicking and popping. All right, so that's a quick primer on this software. I'm going to save this. Make sure I didn't forget anything. Oh, another thing I did add was a button for, I think it was for panic. Sometimes in Midi, you might want to have a panic button. And if you don't put anything in there, it'll just give you oh, I'm sorry, delete that. Just do an image button. This is where you can load your own image, but if there's no image, it gives you this asterisk icon. So then I'll just change that to a panic button. And that's all you need. So now that'll show up there. So that's pretty much it. Oh, if you want to add another knob, say you want to control your, so we control groups with those individual pads, but you also have your master instrument control. So this is where I would actually set the gain there. This would be my master volume. Then I can add a label below that. Gain or volume, whatever you want to call it. Okay. And that's pretty much the background information. So I'm going to save this. Now we're going to go over into my production file. I know bathroom was the latest, so I'll use that as my, so I'm going to copy bathroom. Bedroom. I'll call it bedroom 3. Okay. Now this is bedroom 3, but it's going to look like the UI for bathroom. All right, so as you can see, this is how, in the other file that I just showed you, how things are laid out. And I'll show you how I did my, I used the VU meter, but I used my own custom image for that. And I got the custom knobs, and I'll show you that next. But before we go any further, I'm going to load my new backdrop, just so I don't forget. And then I'm going to go to my instruments, and I'm going to call this bedroom. Okay. And then I want to save. Now, as you see, I got all my pads and everything, but I have my pads from the bathroom project. So that's the cool part. You can copy projects, and then all you have to do, once you have one UI like you want, you can always change the background and then change the instruments, and you're up and running. You don't have to redesign and lay out everything. Another thing I forgot to mention, that you can put your website in here, and you can't see it here, but actually have a clear button graphic here. It's just transparent, and then when you click that link, it'll pull up my website, so it doesn't take away from the UI. All right, so we got that figured out. Next thing I need to show you is how to do these pads. We got to activate the pads. Again, you're just seeing a background image, but if you go to click on this right now, it's not going to do anything because, well, the original, yours won't. But mine, I actually have pads. So let's talk about custom graphics. First thing we're going to do, we're going to go over to knobman.com and show you how to get some knobs. This is a 55 by 55, and then this is 80 by 80. So let me show you that. And I will give you a caveat that you have to use the web version of this software. So if you just type in Knobman, Google Knobman, and there's a gallery. And here you can grab all these different UI components. You can sort if you want to just go by knobs. and keep going until you find one that you like. This is the one I use. Once one person creates a public domain, sometimes people copy it. And this is a 29, let's see. See, you got some photorealistic ones. Here's one, yellow. All right, so one of my knobs was yellow, so let's click on this. Now you can actually open it up right into a web editor. So click on that web editor. And give it a second to load. Okay, so these are like pink. So say all you have to do is go over here under your layers. Just uncheck the ones until you figure out which ones are which. So that was the outside layer. That's the gray. Well, okay, there's two pink layers. That's the knob, and then that's the mark. Okay, so if I go here and say I don't want that pink color, and I want some kind of aqua color. So that's the background color. So maybe I'll make it light gray for that, but then I want this to be like a light blue. Basically, these knobs come in, and the animation is in frames. So it starts out here, which is probably what, 25%, you get 50, 75, and then 100%. Okay, once you have the layout like you want, I'm not gonna go to all the details but you have to just come here and test it out. Once you have it like you want, you can save the knob file for later use, which I recommend. You can just save this as a .knob file, because if you're a Windows-based user, you can actually download an offline editor and you have more customization. So the next thing you want to do is hit export to PNG. So see this number here, 128? There's a total of 128 frames. So that means each image is going to be in one picture, and I'll show you this in a second once it finishes. Okay, it finished downloading. I'm going to open this file. Come on. All right, so this is basically an image sprite. It's an animation. Same thing that's used in video games. And here, as you can see, I had to zoom in, but it starts at 0. So as you're turning that knob, that's how the animation works. All right, so then close that out. I'm gonna go back to my project, and I'm just gonna add a knob here, just a custom knob. I'm not gonna mess up my project. And then I'm gonna go to choose image, go to my downloads. I'm gonna grab that one we just did, and there it is. That's that image. And it automatically picked up how many frames it is. And you can't really scale it in and out. You only can trim it and crop, but that's the only thing about these, because the image is already formatted to the size. I've written some stuff in Python and stuff like that, but with the offline editor, you can go in and change, and I'll show you that in a second. So that's how I did that, and then all I did was add a label below it, just like that. So that's all I did. And then I assign it. Okay. Delete. So that's how I did the custom knobs. And then the buttons. Let's see if I can find you a button, because you need to understand how those are designed. All right, so let me open up Photopia. I'm going to make a new project real quick just so you can see. Let's make it 250 by 75. Okay, so here's the theory behind this. So imagine there's a line in the very center. So what was that, 250, so 125. So imagine this side is the off state and this side is the on state, okay? And whatever your button is. So if I just made it this right here, right, and I'm gonna copy that, and then I'm just gonna move that. The key is you just have to have a space in between. So it has to be enough space in between. So imagine this is the off state, and then when the button's on, it switches to the state. Okay, so I'm gonna make this one, let's change that to a different color. I'll make it red or something. No, we'll make it like a green. Okay. Okay, and then this side, let's just make that lighter. Background, we don't need a background. Just so you can see it, I'll add just a little bit, and I'll give it a all right, so I basically did 250 and the 75 high, so I have a button over here and a button there. So basically, in the off state, it's going to be here, and then when you press the pad, it's going to light up. Okay, so that's 17%. Let's just do like 10. All right, so that's that. And then we're going to export it as a PNG to preserve the button test. I'm going to cut that and move that to my project. Okay, so now let's go back into here. Instead of screwing with this project, I'm going to close. I don't want to mess this up. All right, so let's go out of this one. Let's open our temporary project back up. Okay, and then we're going to our graphic. And now what I'm going to do is add it here. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to do image button. So I'll put that right there, and then I'm going to choose image. And then I'm going to grab my test button. That's my button test. So now you can see what I just did. I just made that gray just so you can see it. We're going to save. And let's go ahead and export this bedroom test. It's called bedroom test. All right, so I'm going to go in my DAW. Keep in mind, I've already copied my house VST folder, VST already over there. So let's grab this. Let's see. Okay. All right. So this is the one we just did, testing purposes. So as long as those files in that folder, it's going to pick up everything. That's the cool thing about it. So now you can see how that button state changes. And these knobs that we created, they're there. So that's how that works. Now I did notice you see it shifting. So that means we got to fix something. Let's go back to Photopia. For some reason, what we got here? That's 5 off the edge. If that's 250, then 245 is there. So they weren't starting at the same point. Yeah, that looks about right. So what I would do is just, for now, you can just turn that one off. And so, and then you can play with this shape. Say you don't want the rectangle. I could add another shape, so I could change that to a circle or ellipse and just draw that in the center of this guy. And hold down the shift key and then it'll make it a perfect circle. Then I grab this here. Let's make sure I got it centered. And then I can change the color here. Use the paint tool. Let's do color overlay. And then I can turn this one off. And I can fade this down a little bit. So you have to, this is how you create the buttons. Oh, I know why, the overlay. Overlay's doing it. Because that's the under, this is only changing the original color. The overlays was really doing it. Okay. So now, there we go. So now we got like a light button. There's nothing here, and it should be a light green button. Now I can export this PNG. Test button 2. Okay, and I'll go back to Maize, and I'll go to my graphic. So we got that one now. Let's just add another one here, and we do a custom image button here. Choose image. Let's grab this from my downloads real quick. And it doesn't really matter on the top, but the bottom, really need to crop that in some because I'll give you an example. So here, you don't want that overlaying those knobs. So let's just do this. Save. Now I need to, my dock open, so I need to really close this project. And I'm going to export this again. And I'm just going to call it bathroom test 2. I just like delete it. And then and on my VST content. Sorry. House instruments. I'm just going to delete the old one. And that way you don't have to deal with stuff with Oh, another thing too, like make sure you close out Maize sometimes, because sometimes if you're using your Midi, it can one could override your DAW or vice versa. Alright, so now we should be able to go to bedroom test. Okay, so now if we click up here, see, there it is. Another thing I forgot to tell you, we gotta actually tell it what note to play. So this button here, it wasn't doing anything because it's not tied to anything. So we gotta make sure we tell it what note to play. So that's note A#1, which is 46. So you gotta actually tell it what note to play to, and then you say play or trigger note. Same thing here. So now that triggers that note. It's not a toggle, it's just a momentary. Guys, I just found something in Knob Gallery that I think will help you out using Knob Webman. You don't even have to install the executable. So let's grab a a button right here. So we got this orange button, right? So let's open up into Web Knobman. So, all right. So the thing, all you have to do is just remember to go this right here. This is actually clickable preferences. I didn't explain that before. So this is basically the dimensions of each frame. So it's 30 by 33, and then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frames. So what you can do, instead of doing it 6 frames, you can go horizontal, and you only want 2, right? And then if you go back to your layers, and if you want to render it now, you get 2 frames. That's all you need to do. So you don't even have to go into Photopea like I showed you before. You can skip that step. You're already set. Now, what if you don't want those colors? As before, just find the layers that you need to change. Okay, so what I would do on our particular project would be I would turn that outline. I would do something like leave these off, and then I would turn on, not that one. There we go. So now we got this little bit of we have this dot. So now if I export it, now I have a blank and I have a dot. And if you want to change the color and make it green, a lighter color, you're all set. Instead of that, we just move that over here. Add an image button. Choose an image. Just got to remember which one it is. Yeah, so there's your green dot. That's it. Yeah, so now we have these. We can change these. Instead of that knob, we can add a custom knob. And we'll change that image. I'll just grab one of these other ones that I already had. So now I can change that to attack. And I can make it select all the groups. Oh yeah, so if you say you made a mistake and you want to change something, just click off of the parameter and come back to it, and then there you go. So now I can get rid of this one. Click and delete and drag this up here. And now we're starting to look like my original design. So just to rehash, just to make sure, I added these volume and pan knobs. Those are the standard knobs, and when I changed the size of 2020, you know, it was just as good as finding a custom knob. Here, we're just showing you how to do an overlay. You just have to make sure that your buttons are set to a MIDI note. That's E1, which is MIDI note 40. And I'm remembering that from the table that I showed you earlier. Make sure you have trigger note turned on. And then that way it'll trigger that note. And let's see. So save. Now you noticed one other thing. This text here is really, really small. So if I picked a different size, different font, let's do that. We're going to export this again. This time I'm not going to change it, but I just want you to see that I did save it and export it. Close that out. I'm gonna open my DAW back up. Okay, so we're doing another demo. All right, so you can see this is the old one. If I toggle, there's the new one. The font's different. There's a button there, and here's a carpet. I think I had a. $44, $45, $46. Oh, there's no file there. That's why. A sharp wants B flat. All right, so A sharp wants B flat. Double click that, and that is 46. All right, here we go. 46. All right, let's go over here. Make sure our sample is turned on one shot. Okay. Make sure the root note is at 46. Make sure the key range is at 46 because it's only going to play that one key note. Now, one thing, if you want to change your gain on your keys, say this is too loud and you want to adjust it here in the sample, you can do that. So now if I play it, it's real low. So you might have a sample that might be too loud right out the gate. So you could always do that. Double click it to make it go back to 0. All right, so I can save that. Another thing, while we're on this over here, I like to, forgot to show you that as far as our effects. So maybe add a new custom knob, and just gonna grab a random knob. Okay, and then say we have reverb, right? So we got to go to action, and we want reverb. Well, there's no stuff under the group. These are your master. So I always do reverb mix, and then you got reverb. So then over here under your effects, I like to go and turn all these on if I'm going to use distortion or anything. So I would say anything I want to use, I'm going to turn it on, but I'm going to turn the mix off. So distortion, delay, and I'll just turn the mix off. Chorus, if I want to use it, reverb, mix off. Now, being this is I want to have a little bit of effects on it out of the gate, so I might make it like 0.12 or something like that. But everything else will be off, and then they'll only be on until you turn a knob. All right, so let's go back to here, and then this is going to change the reverb mix. So right now, there's a little bit of reverb. All right, so now we're going to export this. Call this test 4. Just to be safe. Let's see. Yeah. So we export this test 4. And we'll know because we'll have that reverb knob on there. All right, we will just open a project. Might get lucky. Yeah. All right, so here we go. Turn that down a little bit. So now the pad should be able to work. Okay. And I can change the overall gain of the project. See. And then here's the reverb. No reverb. Let's turn it up a little bit. Add some. And that's pretty much it. So you click up here, takes you to the website. I got to show you one more thing. Yeah, Bearman 3. All right, so Bearman 3 is open. I need to show you this part here. So this is a indicator. You can't see it, but I'm going to show you the file. Just remember these settings. I'm going to go back to Knobman. So what I did, clicked on this. So let's cue this up. All right. So I didn't want all of that around it, so I just turned those layers off. I didn't need the black behind it, and I didn't need the gray. So I just had it like that. And then I exported it to PNG. And it's 37 frames this time. So remember that number. And then if I go into here, you see it's 37 frames. Now I didn't use the typical level meter. So just remember that. So if I do a unit meter, it's made to go side to side because this little device here is going left to right. So that's the one I end up using for that. So just remember that. Bring that in. Here's my settings. I did 37, and then you can play with the range based on your signal, how much you want that LED to fill that up. I did -20 to 0, and it's triggering off of channel 1. So by the time you watch this video, this project is fully updated. You can go download it at shop.banksmusic.com. Hope you enjoy it. I would love to see you create it. Make sure you share your links and comment below. I hope you had a great time learning how to do your first sample-based VST. Again, I've been on this journey. I'm in the process of going through the C++ and Juice programming and all that good stuff, but this has been years of just learning and developing to grow these skills. So I just wanted to put something in one package course free that you guys could use and help you create some great music. Oh, and by the way, if you enjoy this content, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and check out my store. If you see something that you like, hit that buy button. Thank you.